What if the reason nothing has ever felt like enough, not the success, not the relationships, not the money, not the good days, is because the one thing you actually need has been missing since the very beginning? I want to start with a moment that I think you will recognize. You send a message, you wait, you check your phone, you wait some more. You tell yourself you are not going to check again. You check again. Nothing. And then something interesting happens, something that makes no logical sense but feels completely automatic. Instead of thinking, this person is not interested, I should move on, you think, what did I do wrong? What can I do differently? How do I make them respond? How do I make them care? You do not pull back, you lean in harder. You become more available, more accommodating, more willing to shrink yourself into whatever shape you think might finally earn their attention. And the less they give you, the more desperately you want it. The more they pull away, the harder you chase. The more they ignore you, the more convinced you become that their approval is the one thing you cannot live without. This is not love. This is not even real attraction. This is something much older and much deeper than either of those things. And until you understand what it actually is, you will keep repeating this pattern with different people for the rest of your life. Different faces, different names, same story, same pain, same empty hands at the end of it. I know because I lived this for years, and what I am about to tell you is the truth I wish someone had told me before I wasted so much time chasing people who were never going to turn around.
Here is the first uncomfortable truth. The reason you chase people who ignore you is not because they are special. It is not because the connection is rare or the chemistry is unique, or they are the only person who could ever make you feel this way. It is because the way they treat you feels familiar, and familiar, no matter how painful, always feels like home. Think about the first relationships you ever experienced. Not romantic ones, the very first ones. The ones with the people who were supposed to love you unconditionally. Your parents, your caregivers, the adults who shaped your earliest understanding of what love looked and felt like. For most people, those relationships were not perfectly consistent. There were moments of warmth and moments of withdrawal, moments of attention and moments of being overlooked, moments of closeness and moments of emotional unavailability. And as a child, you did not have the option of finding different caregivers. You could not decide, this relationship is not working for me. I'm going to look for better options. You were dependent. So instead of protecting yourself from the inconsistency, you adapted to it. You learned to work for the warm moments. You learned to chase the attention when it was withheld. You learned that love was something you had to earn through the right behavior, the right performance, the right amount of effort. You learned that the way to get someone to love you was to try harder when they pulled away. You learned this so young and so thoroughly that it became your operating system. It became your unconscious definition of what love feels like. And now, decades later, when someone treats you with consistent warmth and genuine availability, something in you does not recognize it as love. It feels too easy, too safe, almost boring. But when someone is inconsistent, when they blow hot and cold, when their attention is unpredictable, when you never quite know where you stand, your nervous system lights up. Because this feels like the real thing. This feels like what you were trained to recognize as love. You are not chasing them. You are chasing the feeling of finally winning something you could never quite win as a child, and they just happen to be the person currently holding the prize. There is a psychological phenomenon that explains why the people who treat you worst have the most power over you. It is called intermittent reinforcement, and understanding it might be the most important thing you ever do for your relationships. Intermittent reinforcement is what happens when a reward is given sometimes, but not always. Not never, that would be easy to walk away from. And not always, that would be satisfying but not addictive. Sometimes, unpredictably, just often enough to keep you hoping, just infrequently enough to keep you desperate. This is how slot machines work. You do not win every time you pull the lever. You do not even win most of the time, but you win occasionally, unpredictably. And that unpredictability creates a compulsion that consistent winning never could. People lose fortunes to slot machines, not because they always pay out, but because they might. The possibility is more powerful than the guarantee. The person who ignores you is a slot machine. Sometimes they are warm and attentive and everything you wanted, and you think, this is it, this is real, I knew it was there. And then they pull away again, and you are back to waiting, back to wondering, back to pulling the lever. And every occasional moment of warmth resets your hope entirely, erases the memory of the last withdrawal, convinces you that if you just keep going, the jackpot is coming. It is not coming. The house always wins. And the house in this situation is the unavoidable truth that someone who is genuinely interested in you does not make you feel this way. Someone who wants to be in your life does not require you to chase them into it.
Let me tell you what you are really after when you chase someone who ignores you. Because it is not them. I promise you, it is not actually them. If it were them, if it were about their specific qualities, their specific personality, the specific connection between you, you would feel the same desperation about people who are genuinely available to you, but you do not. The person who texts back consistently, who shows up reliably, who makes their interest clear, they do not produce this feeling in you. They produce something quieter, something that might even feel like mild disappointment. What you are chasing is a feeling. Specifically, you are chasing the feeling of being chosen by someone who seems like they might not choose you. Because somewhere deep in your psychology, being chosen by someone difficult to win feels like proof of something. Proof that you are worthy. Proof that you are enough. Proof that the nagging, persistent, quietly devastating belief that you are fundamentally not quite lovable enough is wrong.
You are using this person as evidence in a case you have been trying to win your entire life. And the case is, am I worth loving? Am I enough? Do I matter? And here is the devastating problem with that strategy. Even if you win, even if the person who has been ignoring you suddenly turns around and gives you everything you wanted, the validation does not last. It cannot last because it was never really about them. They were just the current vehicle for a question that lives inside you, and a question that lives inside you cannot be answered by anything outside you. The moment their attention arrives, the relief is real but temporary, and then the fear starts again. What if they take it back? What if I lose it? I have to make sure I keep it. I have to keep performing, keep earning, keep making myself indispensable. The anxiety does not end when they finally choose you. It just changes shape. While you are busy chasing the person who does not see you, there are people in your life who do. People who show up consistently, who text back, who remember things you mentioned in passing 3 weeks ago, who are genuinely interested in how you are doing, who make space for you without you having to fight for it. And you are barely giving them your attention, not because they are bad people, not because there is no chemistry, but because they feel too easy, too available, and available to someone who was trained to chase feels like something must be wrong. If they like me this easily, maybe they have low standards. If they are this consistently kind, maybe they are desperate. If I do not have to work for their attention, maybe it is not worth having. This is the cruelest trick your attachment patterns play on you. They make you suspicious of exactly the thing you need. They make healthy love feel untrustworthy. They make you addicted to the anxiety of uncertainty and then interpret the peace of genuine availability as a red flag. You are walking past water while chasing mirages in the desert, and you are doing it because water does not look exciting enough. Because you have been thirsty for so long that you have started to mistake the desperation of thirst for the feeling of being alive. There is another layer to this that is important to understand. Unavailable people often have a specific kind of magnetism that has nothing to do with their actual qualities as human beings and everything to do with the energy of withholding. When someone is enthusiastically interested in you, all their cards are on the table. You can see exactly what you have. There is no mystery, no uncertainty, no game to decode. And while that should feel safe and good, it can also feel oddly deflating if your nervous system is wired for the chase. Because the chase is where all the energy is. The decoding, the analyzing, the hoping, the waiting. It takes up enormous amounts of mental and emotional space. And that space, filled with thoughts of one person, can feel like intensity, can feel like passion, can feel like this must be meaningful because I am thinking about it constantly. But obsession is not the same as love. Anxiety is not the same as excitement. The racing heart you feel when you see their name on your phone is not necessarily chemistry. It might just be fear. The fear of whether this will be the moment they finally give you what you need or the moment they disappear again. Your body reads that fear as intensity. Your mind interprets intensity as significance. And you conclude that this must be the realest, deepest, most important connection you have ever felt. It is not. It is trauma, wearing the costume of romance. And until you learn to tell the difference between the two, every relationship that does not produce, at some point, and the sooner the better, you have to sit down with yourself and have a completely honest conversation, not the comfortable version, not the one where you reassure yourself that this one is different or this time will be different, or once they understand how much you care, they will come around. The real conversation, the one that starts with these questions: why do I believe I have to earn love? Where did I learn that love is something you work for rather than something you receive? Who first taught me that my needs were too much and that I needed to make myself smaller and more convenient to be acceptable? Whose attention did I chase as a child that I could never quite get enough of? And how many times have I chosen that person over and over again in adult relationships without recognizing the pattern? These questions are not comfortable, but they are the only questions that lead anywhere worth going. Because the pattern of chasing unavailable people does not break through willpower, or through finding the right person, or through finally winning the approval of the one who has been withholding it. It breaks through understanding. It breaks through seeing the pattern clearly enough that it loses its power. It breaks through developing a relationship with yourself that is secure enough that you no longer need external validation to feel like you exist. When you stop chasing people who ignore you, really stop, not just pause before resuming, something uncomfortable happens first. The withdrawal is real because you have been running on the chemical cocktail of hope and anxiety and intermittent reward for so long that its absence feels like loss. You will miss the intensity. You will feel oddly empty without the obsessive loop of thoughts. You might even mistake that emptiness for grief over the person. It is not grief over the person. It is your nervous system recalibrating.
It feels different from what you were used to. Quieter, more solid, less cinematic. And at first, that difference will confuse you. But give it time. Let your nervous system learn that this is safe. Let yourself discover that the absence of anxiety is not the absence of feeling. It is the presence of something better, something real, something that does not require you to diminish yourself to maintain.
I want to end with this because it is the most important thing I will say, and I need you to actually hear it. You were never the problem. Not with the person who ignored you, not with the pattern you developed, not with the way your nervous system learned to chase what was withheld. You were a person who needed love and learned the only strategies available to you at the time to try to get it. Those strategies made complete sense given what you were working with. They were adaptations, not flaws, survival mechanisms, not character defects.
But you are not a child anymore. You have options now that you did not have then. You can choose differently. You can recognize the pattern when it starts and make a different decision. You can learn to sit with the discomfort of walking away from something that feels magnetic but is actually just familiar. You can build the internal security that means you no longer need someone else's inconsistent attention to feel like you matter.
You matter regardless of whether they text back. You are enough regardless of whether they choose you. Your worth is not located in the hands of someone who cannot even see it clearly enough to hold it with care. Stop chasing people who are walking away from you. Turn around. The life you deserve is in the other direction.